Hi, everyone. It's Alex Savidge from KTVU, Fox 2 News in the San Francisco Bay Area. And this week we had two pharmaceutical companies pause their late-stage clinical trials. One was Johnson and Johnson with its COVID-19 vaccine, and the other was Eli Lilly that put a hold on its late-stage trials for a monoclonal antibody treatment. Joining us now to talk more about what's going on here is Dr. Peter Chin Hong, Infectious Disease Specialist at UCSF. Doctor, good to have you.
Thanks for having me on, Alex.
All right, so obviously a lot of people hear that these late-stage clinical trials for potential vaccines and treatments are being put on hold, and the immediate reaction is to feel concerned, that there may be some issues here. This was obviously done because there were some people who, or at least one person in each of these cases, who became ill. Is this uncommon for these clinical trials to be put on hold, and how much concern do you actually have?
Well, Alex, I actually think it's a great sign because it shows that these companies that are doing these vaccines or producing these vaccines are serious about safety. So the threshold is actually very low to pause or to put a trial on halt, just because you want to make sure that you observe any serious event as being unrelated to the vaccine. Of course, with a trial in the size of the J&J vaccine trial, which was in the order of 60,000 people, you could imagine that people are just going to be ill, just statistically speaking. So the job of the Data Safety Monitoring Board is really to make sure it's not vaccine related or not, and then resume the trial after.
All right, so in both of these cases here, one of the key questions that we still don't know and you need the answer to, I mean, obviously, hopefully somebody at this point does know the answer. We just don't know it publicly, but we don't know if the patient who became sick actually took the drug or the vaccine or a placebo.
That's right, Alex. Right now, we don't know if the patient was in the placebo arm or in the active drug or vaccine arm. So those details are still forthcoming. But even if the patient were in the vaccine arm, again, something that would have happened normally could have happened. And again, I think the Data Safety Monitoring Board is not only going to look at the statistical chance of that happening, but also going to be looking at whether or not it's potentially linked to the vaccine or a vaccine. For example, if it's an immunologic event or some antibody-like reaction that's autoimmune and attacking another part of the body, that has more plausibility than say if it were a heart attack in somebody who had high cholesterol.
Right, because as you point out, you have tens of thousands of people taking part in these trials, and unfortunately, things happen. People do get sick, and they potentially could be people who just happen to be a part of one of these clinical trials, right?
Definitely. We also have some information from the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine that was halted about a month ago, when a participant in the vaccine group actually got this spinal disease called transverse myelitis that resolved, and that vaccine was resumed worldwide, except in the US where it's still on hold. And I think the US FDA is being very strict. And again, part of it is probably in response to the sort of notion that vaccines could be used for political capital in an election year. So I think they're probably even being a little bit more cautious. So
potentially,
again, yeah.
And then, of course, because as you already had pointed out, you have the eyes of the world on you too. I mean, in most cases, with most drugs, right, we're talking about clinical trials that go on and oftentimes take a lot longer than these are taking. But and nobody is really paying any attention.
No,
here in this case, you have the eyes of the world focused on these vaccines and these potential treatments.
Exactly. I mean, this happens all the time. I mean, we were involved in multiple studies before where they were stopped and then restarted, stopped and restarted because of events that happened in patients who were in the study. And then this kind of arbitration happens on a routine basis. It's just that people are paying attention to it because there's so much at stake here.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I ask you to help us understand one point of distinction? Because my understanding is with the Johnson and Johnson COVID vaccine, the company itself made the decision to put a pause on the late stage trials because of the patient who became ill. And in the case of Eli Lilly with the antibody treatment, this was something that the pause was something that was decided by federal regulators. So you have a pause versus sort of a forced pause by the federal government. How do you understand the distinction there, and what do people need to know about the difference?
Well, the difference in the Eli Lilly case is, again, probably spurred on by, some oversight. Either, again, we don't know all the details. It could be either an audit, which happens from time to time, or more commonly, a routine meeting of the Data Safety Monitoring Board, who then reported it to the FDA. In the case of Eli Lilly, they were being very proactive, and probably, it was good for optics as well, showing that the company was serious about safety. So they are, without any regulator telling them to, that they were willing to put this trial on hold while they investigated. And I think that, from an optics perspective, it probably, makes the public even more comfortable that, hey, here's this company, they're making one of the vaccines, and they are, so careful about it that before anybody tells them to, they're going to do it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, obviously, I hear what you're saying, that this should reassure all of us, right? That the system is working, that we have these protections in place when it looks like there may be some sort of side effects or potential problems with a vaccine or a treatment. But you know as well as I do that in the grand scheme of things, there are a lot of people in this country who have said that they have concerns or they're hesitant about taking a COVID-19 vaccine. And that's going to be, in the long run, right? Once we have one approved, that is going to be, it seems like a hurdle to overcome. When you have these pauses, do you worry about, in some way this leading to more of that vaccine hesitancy as we talk about?
I think the vaccine hesitancy that's currently in the United States about COVID vaccines in particular have multiple reasons for it. I think probably the main reason is that, again, there was the appearance that the political leaders were rushing the vaccine by, by either public statements about it or actually by instructing departments of public health and cities to actually prepare the infrastructure to be ready in time for November 1st, 2 days before the election. So I think all those were like really bad signals. And personally, I was really distraught by it because, again, it created uncertainty and doubt. And, doubt in vaccines has been creeping up more and more independent of this whole COVID business. So if not done carefully, it could set back all of vaccines, which, again, are one of the most important public health interventions that we can make to save a lot of lives.
All right, but as we step back and look big picture here at these potential COVID vaccines that are, again, in the final stages here and moving along and really, at a record pace, you still feel like we are on track to have something approved and potentially being given out to at least those high priority groups early next year?
Yeah, I still think we're on track. The reason is because a lot of money has been invested in these vaccines through Operation Warp Speed in the US, through COVAX, through the WHO, and there are multiple players in the field. So statistically speaking, somebody is going to have a vaccine early and in time. And also they're looking at lots and lots of people. So some, they need to have at least, I think, 5 positive COVID cases in the placebo group before they can look at at least that. So the FDA has put in stricter guardrails as well, I think stricter than many other countries, again, trying to get the safety prioritized. But despite all of this, I still think we're on track for spring of 2021 for at least one of the vaccines to be ready in time.
All right. And your final message to people who might watch this, about once a vaccine has been approved by the FDA, you would say it is safe to take.
Yes, it is safe to take. I'll probably be out there the next day sticking my arm out. I know that Americans are still very worried about it, but again, as more and more people get it and they have experience of people getting it, I think that will hopefully turn the tide. I think overall vaccines are probably not going to be the magic bullet because probably not everybody's going to get it initially. So we will have to use multiple modes until all of the disease is stamped out.
Yeah, we're going to have to stick with our, all these safety measures. The
Mhm.
distancing and the masks are going to be part of life for a little while at least. All right, we appreciate your insight here, and obviously these pauses in clinical trials is just part of the process. When
Definitely.
it comes down to it. All right, Dr. Peter Chin Hong, Infectious Disease Specialist at UCSF, right here in the Bay Area. Really appreciate your time and your insight always. Look forward to talking again soon. I'm Alex Savidge from KTVU, Fox 2 News in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I will see you next time.